Let's learn Monopoly, a 2 to 6 player competitive game published by Hasbro. The goal of the game is to be the final player remaining after everyone else has been bankrupt. To set up, place the game board in the center of the play area. Next, take the chance cards, shuffle those together, and place those on the question mark chance location. Shuffle the community chest cards together, and place those in the chest location of the board. Next, each player chooses a token. Let's set up a 3-player game. Place those tokens on the go space of the board. Next, choose a player to be the banker. The banker will take care of handing out everyone their items throughout the game. At the start of the game, the banker hands out each player their money. So hand each player 5 ones, 5 fives, 4 tens, 4 20s, 3 50s, 2 100s, and 2 500s. If the banker is a player in the game, be sure to not mix your money with the bank's money. To determine who goes first, each player rolls both dice. Whoever has the highest roll will be the player who goes first. In Monopoly, there are things you must do on your turn, and things you can do whether it's your turn or not. Let's start with what you must do when it's your turn. On your turn, roll both dice and move your token the amount indicated on that dice clockwise, and carry out the rule of that space. So let's go over what those rules are right now. When you land on an unowned street, railroad, or utility, you must buy it or auction it. To buy a property, pay the amount listed at the bottom of the space. Payments go to the bank, who then gives you the deed to the property. The deed goes in your own play area. You own this property. If you don't want to buy the property you land on, the bank must auction it. Auctioning is done by the banker, and bidding starts at $10. And anyone can bid, including the player who landed on that space. Bids can increase by as little as $1. Bidding can happen in any player order, so there's no need to wait for the next player clockwise for bid increases. And the auction ends when no one else is willing to increase the bid. The player who bid the most pays their money to the bank, everyone else keeps their own money, and the deed goes to the player who won the bid. And of course, that just goes in their play area. If no one bids on a property, it goes back to the bank until someone else lands on that space. If someone else lands on property you own, you must remember to ask them for rent. If you do, they must pay the relevant amount listed on the title deed. And we can see how much they owe is based on how much you own and how developed it is. If you own a deed to a street that is not a complete set, that player owes the top listed basic amount. If a player owns a color set, they owe the amount listed under the rent with color set. With one house, we can see they owe more. Same with 2, 3, 4, and hotels. If a player lands on a railroad owned by another player, they will owe that player an amount of money based on how many railroads they own. And if a player lands on a utility, roll both dice, and the amount owed to that player is based on whether they own one or both utilities. Making deals to not charge rent is not allowed. Neither is making a loan to another player. When you land on a community chest space, draw a community chest card, resolve that card, then place that card at the bottom of the community chest stack. Anytime you draw a get out of jail free card, keep that card in your play area for a one-time get out of jail free use. Same with the chance cards. When you land on a chance space, draw the top card of the chance stack, resolve that card, then place it back at the bottom of the chance stack. Anytime you are told to collect or pay money without being instructed as to who to give it to, that money comes from or goes to the bank. When you land on income tax, pay $200 to the bank. And with luxury tax, pay $100 to the bank. When a player either lands on or passes through go, they gain $200. Free parking is one of the rare times where nothing happens, as well as when you land on just visiting. When you land on the go to jail space, go directly to jail. Do not pass go or collect $200. Your turn is now over, but you can still collect rent, bid during auctions, buy houses and hotels, mortgage, and trade while you are in jail. The only true consequence of being in jail is you cannot move. And there are a few different ways to get out of jail. To get out of jail, pay $50 at the start of your turn, then roll and move normally. Alternatively, if you have a get out of jail free card, you can use that instead. And finally, you can try to roll doubles. If you do, use that roll to move. If you do not roll doubles, that's the end of your turn, and you can try again on your next turn. If it's your third turn and you still haven't rolled doubles, you must pay $50 and use that roll to move. If your turn is over, but you rolled doubles, roll again. However, if you roll 3 doubles in a row, instead of moving, you go directly to jail, and play passes on to the next player. Otherwise, if you did not roll doubles this turn, play passes on to the next player clockwise. Now let's go into actions you can take whether it's your turn or not. Let's start with building houses and hotels. As soon as you get a color set, you can start buying houses. You don't have to be on that space to build up your houses, nor does it have to be your turn. To buy a house, pay the house cost at the bottom of the deed. That money, of course, goes to the bank, and you can now place a house on your street. But note that you must build up your streets evenly. If you were to build a second house, in this example, you could not build another house on this street. You must choose one of the other ones to help build up evenly. And of course, a third house would have to be built here. Once you have 4 houses on each of your streets, you can pay the hotel cost to remove the houses from a street and place a hotel. You can only have 1 hotel per street, and you cannot add more buildings. Just note you cannot build a house on a street if any deed of that color has been mortgaged, which I will get to in a bit. Because streets can be built up when it's not your turn, multiple people may wish to build houses at the same time. If multiple people want to buy the last house or hotel, it goes up for auction. And auctions for houses and hotels work exactly the same as deeds. Bidding starts at $10. Bid increases can be increased by at least $1. And when no one wishes to outbid the last bid, that bidder takes the house or hotel, and their money gets paid to the bank. If there is no more of a type of building, you cannot build that building. You cannot sell a building to another player. You also cannot swap buildings. If the supply is out of buildings, you must wait until someone else sells their buildings. Once back in the supply, you are now able to purchase that building. At any time during the game, players are free to sell, buy, or trade properties at any time. Get out of jail free cards can also be used in trades. If you are selling a street to another player, you must first sell all houses and hotels of that color set. Remember, buildings can never be sold to another player. When it comes to trading between players, the amount is determined by the players. If a player gains a mortgaged property, they may choose to unmortgage it now or later. And that's it. That's all that happens when you gain another player's mortgaged property. So let's talk about how mortgages work. If you find yourself in need of funds, you can sell buildings or mortgage property. When selling buildings, you would gain half the cost listed on the title deed. If there are 4 houses available, you can sell a hotel, and in this example, gain $75. Same with houses, keeping your streets even, sell a house, and gain half the house cost. And a second house would have to be sold from here or here, and so forth. To mortgage a property, first make sure all buildings on those properties have been sold at half their cost. Then turn the title deed face down and collect the mortgage value from the bank. To unmortgage a property, pay the unmortgage cost and flip over the card back to its original side. If a player lands on a mortgaged property, they do not pay rent. However, if a player lands on an unmortgaged property that's part of a complete set in which one of the properties is mortgaged, that player still collects the rent with color set amount. These same rules are applied to utilities and railroads. If you find yourself in debt to another player, even after selling all your houses and hotels, as well as mortgaging all your properties, you are bankrupt and are now out of the game. All your property and get out of jail free cards now belong to the player you are indebted to. If you go broke owing money to the bank, all your properties go back to the bank, where all your properties must immediately be put up for auction, and your get out of jail free cards go back to their respective stacks. The final player remaining on the board is the winner. Thank you for joining me to learn Monopoly. Have fun!